Hey, fourth graders, it's Mrs. Long, and today we are going to be talking about tackling multi-step word problems. First of all, I'm going to apologize for anything that looks a little weird in my PowerPoint. For some reason, when I downloaded it, it downloaded all weird. So hopefully we'll be able to do this pretty well. But today we're just going to talk about how we can tackle multi-step word problems because we see multi-step word problems all over math. We see word problems all over math because word problems really take the math skills that we're learning with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and they help us to apply it to real life situations. Remember, we're not just learning how to multiply it for the sake of learning how to multiply. We're learning how to multiply because it's a skill that we actually use in our regular everyday life. And so we want to make sure that we know how to do it proficiently and also understand the situations where using multiplication is the appropriate strategy versus using a different one of our strategies. So first things first, before we tackle word problems, you need to understand, what does it mean to add? What does it mean to subtract? What does it mean to multiply? And what does it mean to divide? You've learned how to do all of those skills, but it's not enough to just know, okay, 2 plus 3 equals 5. You need to know, what does that mean? It means that I have 2 of one thing and 3 of another thing, and I'm combining them together. So now I have 5. Okay, that's what that means. And so that's what we're going to look at, because then when we're looking at word problems, we really want to use a strategy called visualization, where you're picturing what's going on in your mind. And if you don't know how to apply what you're picturing to math, that makes that whole thing really complicated. So there's a lot of different tips and tricks for using word problems. You guys have already learned about drawing pictures and using strategies like guess and check to do a word problem. Anytime you see word problems, don't freak out and don't be like, oh my goodness, there's so much information. It's just a short story. Think of it just as a really short story, and you want to figure out what's going on in the story. And that's really all that word problems are. Okay, so let's look at this. All right, first of all, and these stills shots of Mr. Smith, I'm sorry to say, are supposed to be clips of him moving. Again, when I downloaded it, did some funky things. So the first type of situations we have are count together situations, and this is the hand motion for this. And while you're watching this video, I want you guys doing this hand motion with me. Count together situations. What am I doing? I'm putting my hands together, right? That's exactly what my hands are doing. In addition situations, that's exactly what you're doing. You're putting groups, or you're putting items together. That's really all it is. Okay. The items don't have to be exactly the same items. They don't have to be in the same size groups. Okay. Anytime you're taking things and you're putting them together, that's a count together situation, which means you're going to add. All right. Next, oh man, this slide got all messed up. Next, we have takeaway situations. Takeaway situations are basically where you have an amount and you're taking some away. You may be giving them away. You may be donating them. You may be sharing them. You may be, you've lost them. Anytime you are taking some away, right? You have an amount and some are leaving that amount. That is a subtraction situation or a takeaway situation. In fact, when a lot of students are learning about subtraction, they call it takeaway, right? And that's not wrong. That's exactly what you're doing with subtraction. Sometimes subtraction problems will have you finding the difference between two numbers or two things. Remember, find the difference means the difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So that is, that should definitely signal subtraction, because in math, the word difference means the answer to a subtraction problem. Okay, now we have combining equal size groups. And that's how I do it. Combining equal size groups. Again, I hope you're doing these hand motions with me, because combining equal size groups means we have things that, which just like when we're doing count together situations, right? We're still combining things together, but now everything has to be in the equal size groups. So everything is basically the same. Like if I'm buying boxes of donuts, right? Every box that I buy has the same amount of the same thing in it. And I want to know how many I've bought all together. Okay. Anytime I'm looking at groups, and I'm combining those groups together, the groups have to be the same size, right? I can't have one box of donuts that has 6 donuts in it and another box of donuts that has 12 donuts in it and multiply, because those aren't the same. I'm combining things together and they have to be the same. That's multiplication, okay? And then the last part is a break apart situation. A break apart situation is division. So you're taking a big amount in like my arm, and I'm breaking it apart, and I have to be breaking it apart into equal sized groups. So anytime you're splitting something or breaking it apart, dividing it, that's what the word divide means, right? If I'm dividing something, I'm breaking it up into equal sized groups. So if I wanted to measure wood and I need the same size, I have a big, huge, long piece of wood and I need the same size pieces, and I'm cutting it up into smaller pieces and all the pieces are going to be the same size, that would be a division situation or a break apart situation. If I have a big amount of candy that maybe I've bought in a big bag and I want to share it equally with my friends, that would be a break apart situation. So all of those, anytime you're breaking it apart into equal size groups, that's a division situation. That's when you would be using division. And sometimes we know certain numbers can't be broken apart evenly, right? If I have 15 pieces of candy and 2 friends, then if I want everybody to get the same amount, well, I'm going to have some leftovers, right? And we want to think, well, what are those leftovers? In that case, the leftover would be an extra piece of candy that maybe I get to eat myself, right? Okay, so you really want to think as you're doing word problems. The key is read it like it's a short story and really picture in your mind and think about what's going on. If you need to, draw your own pictures or act it out. Maybe get your learning coach or some friends to help you act out the problem. Draw it out like a comic strip. What happens first? What happens next? Another strategy to help you with word problems, and this is specifically for learning coaches, if your student's having a hard time with word problems, is to print out the word problem, cut it up into pieces, mix them up, and have them resequence the word problem. So what would come first? What would come next? How would that make sense? And you always want to think when you get to the answer, look back at the question and think, does that answer match the question? Is it reasonable? Does it make sense? The key is don't give up. Don't see a word problem and be like, oh, word problems are so hard. It's too hard. I can't handle this, because you can handle it. You guys have learned how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And if you know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you know how to do word problems. It's just a matter of really taking the time to think. Use your reading comprehension skills. What skills do you use when you're reading a story to understand what's happening in a story? Those are the same skills that you want to use in a word problem to help you understand what's happening in a word problem. Okay, so hopefully this is, oh, my microphone just fell down. Sorry about that. Popped out of my ear. Hopefully this is helpful to you when it comes to word problems. Again, you really want to think about what's going on, what's happening. Okay, think back. Am I combining things together? That means I need to add. Am I taking away? That means I'm going to subtract. Am I combining things together that are equal? Then I'm going to multiply. Am I splitting something apart or breaking something apart? Then I'm going to divide. And sometimes you have to do more than one thing, right? So sometimes it's helpful to read the word problem in sentences. If it's a multi-step problem, read the first sentence and figure out what's going on in the first sentence. Then read the next sentence. What's going on in the next sentence? Read the next sentence. Do it one step at a time. Okay. You don't have to look at it as a big whole paragraph. Look at it as one sentence or one part of a sentence at a time. Whatever you need to do to help you understand what's going on, that's what you want to do. Okay. So really the key for word problems is you have to stop. You might have to read it 2, 3, 4 or more times. Sometimes even as a teacher, I have to read through the problems a few times to really get all of the information, make sense of all of it in my mind before I go on to answering it. And you guys are going to need to do the same thing. Be patient, try your best. You guys have got this. And as always, if you have any questions, just let me know. All right. Bye, guys.